Late night, they ain't getting no rest. Work so hard, people think I'm obsessed. Cream at the crop, won't settle for no less. Headed to the top, arena so focused. Yeah, gorilla of the jungle, I've been beating on my chest. I learned from the struggle, it was all just a test.
Hey guys, and welcome back. So today I want to talk about Bitcoin. We just put in a new all-time high, so we're going to take a look at the chart. We're going to look at Bitcoin dominance. We're also going to take a look at TOTAL3. So we really want to see, what kind of resistance are we looking at? If we're going to get a continuation of the cycle, what are some potential targets that we could be, starting to keep our eye on? We always want to make a plan ahead of time. We don't want to be reacting based on emotion here. So what we're going to do, jump over to our chart over here. We're looking at Bitcoin on the high time frame, so that weekly chart. The first thing I want to showcase here is we've talked about it before, this multi-cycle high trend line. So we saw here in 2017 kind of acting as a resistance for that peak here. Same thing through both peaks in 2020, 2021, as well as 2021, 2022 that we saw in this cycle here, and also acting as that resistance for the new highs we put in 2025. So that's kind of what we've seen, this trend line being observed as resistance. We also have a few other technical factors that we have talked about in the past. We have this cup and handle breakout measured move. So we've talked about that. You basically have this cup formation. So this big long arc, downtrend consolidation. Uptrend, we get our sideways consolidation here. This is the handle. So you think of this as a teacup. We've got our cup here. We've got our handle. We consolidated. We broke out. We back tested this as support before continuing to the upside. This was actually a really good move that we did catch utilizing that technical analysis. So right now, we're doing very well. We're up here. We've just broken these all-time highs just by a little bit. So we are getting a little bit of a rejection. That being said, I don't expect things to always go straight up or down, especially when we get to a key massive resistance like this. So you're going to have a lot of people who bought Bitcoin up here. They kind of FOMO'd in. They chased. They're taking their first opportunity to get out of that position at break even or at a little bit of profit. You also have new market entrants entering at 75,000 or so, running that up, and we see if you're looking at that from a percentage move to the highs, that's almost a 50% move in the span of about a month and a half. So that's really good returns. Not surprised to see people taking profits around this resistance level. We could also see a scenario where we put in a higher high here on the cycle, but ultimately that was the top for the cycle. So there's a couple scenarios here. We need to be prepared for either. Either we're going to get a continuation of this cycle to the upside. So to me, that's kind of signaling this move in through here. I'm going to highlight that for you really quick. So we see in through here where we came back down, we swept underneath that 50-day moving average before breaking back above the 200-day and the 50-day, coming back, retesting it as support before putting in that final topping pattern for the cycle there. And then going into that downtrend, this was the dead cat bounce rally that we were a little bit worried might have been materializing. That's why we've been kind of cautiously entering positions and utilizing stop losses to protect those profits to the upside. Why I think we might be more resembling this move in through here is look at the structure of the moving averages as well as the price action. So right here, we've started to see, that bullish cross looks like it's coming in here. So we've got that 50-day curling back up. Price has well broken above the 200-day moving average. So similar to over here, we broke above the 200-day in the dead cat bounce. We got rejected by the 200-day. So that's a big difference here. This was also lower high, lower low price action on the weekly. So right now, we're holding the lows where we put in a higher high, technically speaking. We can continue up here and potentially reach some of these higher targets for the cycle. The first major resistance zone that I see here, we're looking at about, obviously the all-time high area here. But we're looking at a lot of confluence of resistance here around $125,000 to $130,000 per Bitcoin. So what we could see is come up here, a little bit of a retest of this support. Nothing goes straight up forever. It didn't go straight up here either. And let's take a look at this move from this low to the high. That was an 85% move. So even more of a stronger move than what we saw here. We still came back tagged that 0.5 Fibonacci. That's what I've marked here at about 92,500. If we get that entry, that's going to be a swing trade opportunity for me. I'll look to add exposure kind of within this Fibonacci golden zone. So we see here 786 all the way up to that 0.5. Because of that history here, we want to ensure that we are at least, getting a bit of a position when we come down to this retest. But ultimately, we want to have that stop loss underneath this support here, because if we break down below, that's that signal that we could be going into that bear market downtrend. So we want to maintain those higher lows. We're going to watch our multi-time frame indicators. When we come back to these levels, we want to ensure that our multi-time frame setups are looking good. So if you're looking at a long time trade, 4 hour, 1 day, and the 1 week, we want to find confluence between those. If we're looking at a shorter term trade, you might be looking at the 1 hour, the 4 hour, and the daily. So really just figure out which time frame you're trying to analyze. But this is going to be the area that I'm looking to take advantage of. I'm not chasing right now. So we've done a lot of swing trading. We've bought the dip in various stocks and assets. We've got some altcoins that have performed well. So right now, we're just maintaining our exposure. Potentially looking at protecting profits with stop losses. I talked about that in 2 previous videos. If you haven't seen that, go check that out for sure. But ultimately, we want to maintain that exposure in case the upside continues, but protect ourselves to the downside. So we've done really well. We're just going to continue with the same analysis as we have been this entire time. And what we see here is this target 125 to about 130,000. So we've got this upsloping trend line acting here. So if we come back and just consolidate before we go up here, this actually could coincide with an upper resistance target. We've got our cup and handle measured move. So I talked about that here. How you get that is you measure from the low to the high of the right side of the cup, and where we break out, that's where you take this dollar amount and measure it to the upside. So that's what we have here. Right around 126,000. We've also got this 1.618 Fibonacci extension resistance. So we talk about those Fibonacci levels acting as support and resistance. This is another one with right in that 128,000 range. So that's kind of my first major top for a cycle or potential cycle top. We're looking at 125 to 130,000. I'm either going to look to continue protecting positions once we get up there, or I'm going to take profits off the table. That's my first target. I don't care if things go higher. If you have kind of a similar cost basis to me with my strategy, we wait for that uptrending confirmation. We get in right around here, so around $25,000 per Bitcoin. If we go to $125,000, that's a 5x. So I'm more than happy with those returns. I'm happy to book profits on that kind of move. And then if price keeps going to the upside, we continue maintaining exposure. So we don't sell everything all at once. We need to kind of layer in and out of the market depending on the relative risk at that time, depending what the charts are saying. So first target here, 125 to 130,000. Secondary target, 150 to 160,000. That kind of falls within this logarithmic regression rainbow band 4. So I've talked about this tool within ITC. This is the logarithmic regression rainbow. It has essentially done a very good job at picking the tops for these cycles, and we've noticed every single cycle we drop 2 bands lower. So essentially a 2-band deviation to the downside, and that's usually where it lines up. So right now, currently, that price is at the top of band number 4, and that's about $160,000 here. Last but not least, we've got our 2.618 Fibonacci extension here, just above 175,000. So that's my range, that's my targets for a cycle top, 125 to 175,000. That's where I'm going to take a lot of profits, where I'm going to protect positions. It also could be strong psychological levels too. A lot of people, these nice even round numbers, 100,000, 125,000, 150,000, lots of people targeting these because of the psychological resistance behind them. And ultimately, we could just see them acting as resistance. So what we're going to do, we book our profits, and same thing, we're looking to reinvest on a continued uptrend. So if we get that continuation to the upside, if we can get above this trend line and hold it as support, that really brings in these upper targets as has more of a potential in my opinion. For now, my target is just 125 to 130,000. I'm not worried about this target up here, and I'm not worried about this target up here. I don't think we're going to go to those without at least, coming up, testing this, getting above it as support, retesting it as support, and then continuing to the upside. The technicals just don't ever really work out that way. And if they do, it's moved so aggressively and so hard to the upside that I can't really chase anything that kind of looks like that. So similar reason what we're in right now. We don't want to chase. We just want to plot our entries here. So if we take a look, let's get rid of some of these drawings here just to clean up the chart. And all we can do is flip to the daily, take our Fibonacci tool, and let's look for a nice probable entry here in Bitcoin. If we can come back to, like I said, to that 92,500 level, that would be a retest of the 50-day and the 200-day moving average, as well as buying down into this swing breakout. So all the way down to the 786, 82,000 up to 92,000. That's where I want to build my next position in Bitcoin if we come back there, because when we look at the weekly, that's still a higher low. So no matter what right now, as long as we hold above 75 or 74,500 roughly, we've maintained the higher low price action structure, and we can continue to the upside. Similar to what we saw over here though, we came down death cross of these two moving averages, and then right here, right before the golden cross, we topped, came back, hit that 0.5 Fibonacci, and then continued to the upside. We're just about to reach that golden cross right now. If history rhymes or repeats, we could see a bit of a rejection at resistance, come back, retest those moving averages, retest this Fibonacci support zone, build that higher low support for the continuation to the upside. So that's my plan for Bitcoin. We're still not chasing. We're still waiting patiently, maintaining the exposure that we have. We've got exposure in miners. We've got exposure in Bitcoin. We've got exposure in different proxies and altcoins. And we've done well to kind of swing trade our way through this volatile environment here, maintain exposure, build cash positions, and ride things back to the upside. So next thing I want to look at is we're going to take a look at Bitcoin dominance, and we're going to look at TOTAL3, because what we see here is essentially Bitcoin dominance has broken down from this support line here, and it's currently kind of back testing the underside of this wedge. So we want to look and see what are some comparisons to prior cycles that we can draw. And what we have here, we see in this cycle a similar kind of move here. Price bottomed, broke out, dominance went on its uptrend, it put in its first cycle high, eventually breaking down, back testing, getting rejected. That's that bearish price action that I talk about, a bearish rejection. You see these moving averages curled back over. So it's kind of similar to what we're starting to see here. Price came back, retested the Fibonacci golden zone, and then bounced from there. That would have wrecked alts a little bit here, and then this was the alt season move. So this right here is where altcoins really outperformed. Let's take a look at our Lux Algo fair value gap channel. So look here, we topped, put in that top here, right in the middle, that fair value line here, this gray line, and we hit that twice here. So the initial peak coming in right as we hit the upper, or kind of the middle band here, and look where we are right now. We came up, we almost tagged that middle band, and we're running out of steam, facing that resistance now. If we see something continue to play out like this, I expect price to come back, retest this area down here, and then ultimately come up, put in a lower macro high, similar to what we saw over here, and then going into that downtrend for dominance. This is where altcoins really outperform. We can see altcoins catching a little bit of a bid here. I would be very selective on altcoins if you're looking to enter here. If we do continue to see signs of rejection at this resistance and kind of expect a little bit of a relief rally in alts, but I wouldn't expect the true alt season to take place until we get this more sustainable downtrend like we saw over here. But we can pay attention to the strong movers, pay attention to Bitcoin pairs, Ethereum pairs. We're going to continue looking at alts. I don't think we're in a rush to buy into alts right just yet, but we need to start making our plans. We're going to have our eyes on all these different assets and watch to see what continues to play out over the next few weeks here. So Bitcoin dominance, it does have the potential to break down from here. It is kind of holding that macro uptrend for the time being. So we'll have to see what plays out. We'll take a look at TOTAL3. TOTAL3, I think, is looking a little bit better than others' dominance here as well. So if you're going to focus on altcoins, you might look at TOTAL3, and then within TOTAL3, make sure you're focusing on that relative strength to Bitcoin. So what we saw here, just this big downtrend breakout, uptrending price action on the daily, but right here, we need to continue up and take out these highs, because if we come in, put in a lower high here, that's that signal that we've lost a little bit of momentum, you know, and then we can see when we flip to the weekly chart, this uptrend is less relevant. So we see here, we've only got one higher low on the weekly, one higher high. So we're going to watch for this continued higher low on the weekly. Let's pull our Fibonacci and see where it lines up. So if we come in here within that 6182.5 Fibonacci, could be a solid entry for some altcoins, and that would be that retest of the 50-day moving average and that 200-day moving average as well. And then hopefully from there we can continue to the upside. But like I said, this right now we're a little bit extended here. We're kind of closer to resistance than we are to support when it comes to TOTAL3. Same thing with Bitcoin dominance. It's right at that resistance line, so we need to wait and see what happens. You know, we've got some altcoins that we entered over the last month or so, or a couple months, my mistake, sorry. But so pretty much we're just going to maintain our exposure in there. We've got some stop losses protecting it. We've already realized some profits in some of those trades, and we're just maintaining that exposure and plotting our next moves here. So getting ready so that when the time comes, we're not rushing, we're not investing based on emotion. We just look at the charts and say, yep, that's in an uptrend, that's looking good. The multi-time frame indicator setup supports that move, and we can look to really start getting into position when we have that technical confirmation on the higher time frame. Until then, there's still a lot of uncertainty and volatility in the market. Looking at the US 10-year, it's up 2.5% today, while the SPY is down 1%. Gold also still pumping again. Silver. So still this disconnect between the stock and the bond market, you know, kind of this this mixed emotions around risk on versus risk off. So we really just have to wait and see. Unfortunately, we don't get the insider information, so we can't invest based on speculative hope that things are going to flip bullish on the macro side of things. All we can do, look at the data, look at the charts, plot our levels, and execute when those levels come into fruition, and when the indicators back that thesis that we're likely to continue to the upside. Otherwise, we watch and we're just patient, we're protecting our positions, and we're looking for more opportunities. So thank you so much for watching, guys. I just wanted to get a quick update out there, you know, covering Bitcoin's new all-time high, potential cycle targets, and what we're looking at in terms of dominance and TOTAL3 for altcoins. So I'll see you guys in the next one, and have a great day.